So I remember when I started the Block Church, when my wife and we were young, you know. What's that song? We were young and wild and free. You remember that one?
Wiz Khalifa.
Wiz Khalifa. See, I'm relevant. Yeah. And like when you're young, you're kind of playing with house money, right? And then, you know, I'm 37 now. Our church is 8 years old, almost, we're going to be 9. And it doesn't feel like you're playing with house money anymore. It feels like, okay, the stakes are a little bit higher. You got kids involved, you have employees involved, you have people's salaries, health insurance, and then you try to not focus on this stuff because you want to minister. But the reality is, at least in my role as the lead pastor, CEO, the stakes just get higher. Mm-hmm. There is more to lose. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have been thinking a lot about, okay, I want to do this for a long time. Okay, but what I do is I'm a lead pastor in Philadelphia in a urban environment. All of our locations are in the city, Philadelphia being the largest poorest city in the United States, or the poorest large city in the United States. And everybody, and I want to be clear, everybody has a different difficulty. You know the line, choose your hard, right? But there is a different emotional and physical and spiritual, there are different implications for those who are planting and leading in hard places. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no doubt about it, leading and building a multi-site ministry in an urban environment comes with unique challenges. Right. Mm-hmm. And I heard this, and I don't know if this is true or not. I was talking to a pastor, but David Wilkerson, who started Teen Challenge, he wouldn't even let his staff live in New York City. Wow. He want, and I could be wrong about that as a rumor I heard, but it's like the theory was, I need you to go eat well and sleep well and live outside the city so you keep loving it. Yeah. And that's not necessarily my philosophy. I love living in the city and so forth. But the question I've been wrestling with a lot lately is, all right, almost 9 years into the church, how do you know when the job is done? At least for me. Yeah. How do you know when the job is done? Yeah. And I think all of us, every leader has an expiration date on their season, their ministry, or their role. Okay? I mean, some guys stay lead pastors or CEO for 30 years, and God might actually be asking them to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, there's a transition that has to come. At some point in your staff role, you have to elevate, you have to take on more, you have to take on something new. Yeah. Maybe it's time for you to leave. Whatever it is, how do you know that your current job is done? That's kind of what I want to get into today. How do you know the job is done? And so I've been pondering this. I've got 7 little keys that I've been processing this over the last year. 7 little keys. Here's the first one. Okay, I know the job is done when you sense the spiritual stir. Okay, you sense a deep stirring towards change. Now, notice I don't say physically, relationally, or emotionally. Okay, I'm not talking about I've got a physical, I'm exhausted. I'm not talking about I'm emotionally depleted because of my environment. I'm not talking about I've got relationship opportunities. I'm talking a spiritual stir. Yeah. That is the number one thing you have to ask yourself before you assume the job is done. Is God asking you, preparing you, or telling you transition is on the horizon? Is it time to exit a role, retire? Is it a new seat on the bus? Is it promotion in the organization? Is it do something new? Is it take on something new? You name it. Are you sensing a spiritual stir? Listen to me. If you try to change because you want to change or because someone else wants you to change, you're out of bounds. It has to start with a spiritual stir. If you try to change on your own merit and not out of obedience, it will backfire.
Yeah.
Over the last year, I thought about quitting and doing something different a lot. And I was traveling and preaching other places a lot. And I preached at some great places, some very large ministries. And when I'm preaching and then looking at mountains and hitting a golf ball and eating a nice meal in friendly territory where you're the star, it's really easy to go, oh, I could get used to this.
Yeah.
And I really, really wrestled a lot. And I felt like God did a couple things in me over this next year. I know I'm not supposed to travel and preach out as much. But also what I was sensing, and I really wrestled through this, what I was sensing was a emotional, a physical, and even a relational pull. But it was not a spiritual one. It was spiritual in a sense because what I was doing is I was coveting somebody else's green grass. I was looking at somebody else's mountain, if you will. And a spirit stir is how we decipher the emotions and the exhaustion. You have to rest, you have to hobby, you have to travel, but you got to decipher if it's from the Spirit. Grass isn't greener unless it's God's grass.
That's good.
And that's what I had to determine this year, and I feel very confident that the job isn't done yet for me. Here's the second one. So we've got a spiritual stir. We also have the success story. Your job isn't done if your work or your ministry doesn't have your imprint or your standard of success established. If not, you might not be done yet. Furthermore, there's got to be enough stories of success to know you finished the job. Even if your success was simply obedience, there will be a great story attached. And so I think it's ludicrous to think the job is done if there's not some success attached to it.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So spiritual stir, there's got to be some success stories. Here's the third one. You got to have the documented diary. Using a lot of alliteration today. I apologize to all of you who hate that. But I think this is a big one and it's overlooked, right? This is huge. Your work should be documented and easy to find. Don't finish a job and make someone scramble and ask and waste their days trying to understand what you did.
Yeah.
I think that is incredibly disrespectful. And for some people, they don't know any better. But now I'm teaching you. If ever it's your time to go, you should have a documented diary of what you did, what worked, systems you set up, where people can find things. I think your diligence in this is responsible. And you know your job isn't done yet until your diary is documented.
Yeah.
And if your job's not done yet, at some point it will be. You've got to start and go back and start documenting.
Yeah.
Success is defined by what you set in motion. If what you do and did is all in your head, then the motion stops with you. Right? Success is defined as what you set in motion and what survives. If everything you did is in your head, well, then the motion stops with you.
Yeah.
That is not success. And I don't believe the job is done yet. Here's a fourth one. The developed disciples, right? So we've got a spiritual stir. We might have some success. We've written in our diary, our documents, right? But have you developed your own disciples in your area? And I'm not just talking from a spiritual standpoint, although obviously that's important. We're church leaders. But what did you do to develop the people who are raised to stay? If everyone and everything collapses without you, you haven't developed enough people. You may, listen to me, and I want to be clear, because it could come out as manipulation. So I don't want it to. You may not be responsible to rehire your role. But your developed disciples should be able to function beyond a few weeks worth of your transition.
Yeah.
Okay? And maybe even more. That's how you know the work is that deep. In the best leadership world, you've made your replacement obvious. We should work towards this. Number 5, I call it the super system. The super system. Does it run with you, but without you? Are you there yet? Does this thing run like a well-oiled machine with you, but without you? Meaning, you don't got a lot to do these days. A great mark of success is that you do less. You've worked yourself out of a job. We know this. This is Leadership 101. Your people need your vision, but not your hands. Your people need your vision, but not your hands. Recruiting, listen to this. Recruiting and building your teams and your infrastructure, it's now happening without you. It's almost like a dividend or a royalty rolling in, where it's like, man, this is happening. Like things are building without my intermixing. Yeah. You're able to focus on other passions while maintaining the current one. I've watched, there's a particular guy who is podcasting right now. He just handed off his church. But he had built his church to a way where he was doing his podcast. This was his passion, but things were running without him until he had the right person to replace, and neither area lacked. All right, here's number 6. I've got 2 more. I'm going to move quickly. I call it, how do you know the job is done? The vanishing vision. You've prayed, you've wrestled, you've rested. You're healthy. You're healthy. You've given all you can, but you don't have any vision left. You don't have any passion left. Okay? And again, I want to be clear. You've done the praying. You are healthy. You've done the counseling. You've rested. You've wrestled. You didn't make a decision on defeats or success. You just don't have any vision or passion left. Might be a sign. Job's done. Especially if you've seen the success.
Yeah.
I think this one, we got to be careful because it can be a cop-out.
Yeah.
It can be a cop-out. Okay? A lot of times people quit because they haven't seen what they want to see and they make excuses.
That's good. That's good.
Here's the last one. I call it the new need. How do you know the job is done? There's a new need. The job or current season might be done when a new need in the organization arises and calls for your greater depth. Or an opportunity that maybe you didn't even seek. It brings itself forth, and it's not dishonoring to move towards it. Question that you have to ask in all this is, do you trust your leader? Do you trust God's voice? And do you trust what you've built? There's something inside all of us. We call it the knower. You know.
Yeah.
And you will know. But you should wrestle, and you shouldn't finish a job lightly.
Yeah.
Here's comes quick solutions to all this. Number 1, regular prayer and meditation. You know this. Number 2, regular rest and play. Number 3, regular communication with trusted sources. Lastly, always giving your best effort to guard against quitting before it's time.
Yeah, that's good.
Even when a good new opportunity comes, okay, even if it's in the organization, a lot of times the job might be done because you're supposed to promote and elevate.
Yeah.
But like, is it right? Can I do both? Should I?
Yeah.
Wrestle. It's a tension.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous to teach something like this to your team, but my responsibility is, and all of our responsibilities, is to get people where God wants them.
That's good.
And if we do that, organization will take care of itself. You do your part, I'll do mine. God will do his.
That's good.
That's good.